All right, that's the second question. Let me move on to the third question before I take a break. Third question is, was anybody saved before Jesus? How were people in the Old Testament saved? Well, let me address this one hopefully fairly briefly. There's two deeply relevant passages. Genesis chapter 15 verse 6 says, and he, meaning Abram, and he believed in the Lord, and he, meaning the Lord, accounted it to him for righteousness. Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord accounted it, credited it to Abram for righteousness. Now, Romans chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. What then shall we say that Abraham, our father, has found according to the flesh? For if Abraham was justified by works, he has something to boast about, but not before God. For what does the scripture say? Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. Now to him who works, the wages are not counted as grace, but as debt. But to him who does not work, but believes on him who justifies the ungodly, his faith is accounted for righteousness. Friends, the believer in Jesus Christ on this side of the cross is declared righteous by God because of their faith, their relationship of love and trust in Jesus Christ. They trust in, they rely on, they cling to Jesus, both in this life and their hope in the life beyond. And that is their salvation. That is their rescue. Well, obviously, before the time of Jesus, in the days of the Old Testament, there was not, so to speak, Jesus to trust in. Or, should I say, was there? Because what there was is there was the promise of the Messiah. There was the promise of God sending a Messiah to save his people. And there was the continually reinforced idea that the sacrifice of animals was not sufficient to take away sin. You know, when God gave the law to the people of Israel, it had three main components to it. It had the law, that is the instructions, the rules. It had the priesthood and the sacrifices. And the priesthood and the sacrifices were very important because nobody could keep the law, not perfectly. And what do you do when you break the law? Then you have to look to sacrifices and so on. But God showed again and again that it was impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sin. It could cover it over, but it couldn't take it away. And under the old covenant, faith, the kind of faith that Abraham had, was often expressed by trust in the work of sacrifice, looking forward to that perfect ultimate sacrifice promised by God and fulfilled in the work of Jesus at the cross. You know, some of the Old Testament sacrifices, it's fascinating. The offerer, the sacrifice, was instructed to lay his hands on the head of the animal and confess their sins. Isn't that powerful? I'm transferring my sin to this animal. And then what happens to that animal? Killed, sacrificed. I put my sins upon this animal, and it was sacrificed. Now, you might think, you can imagine someone being a little bit traumatized. I don't think they were. Look, that was a rough age. They saw animals getting slaughtered all the time. But you and I today, we'd have to find the fainting couch and the smelling salts. Oh my gosh, you did that to the lamb right in front of me. You can imagine somebody just being, deeply affected. Oh my gosh, that lamb, I put my hands, I confessed my sins, and then the priest, wow, he killed him and bled out right before me. And that lamb was dead, and it's never coming back, and it was sacrificed for my sins. Surely, such a significant thing is that I saw the life blood of that lamb pour out. And surely, such a dramatic thing has taken away my sins. And then what would you do? The next year, you'd bring another lamb and lay your hands on it again. And well, wait a minute. Didn't the first lamb work? Well, kind of. That would be the most proper theological explanation of it. Kind of. In a way, it covered over the sin, but it didn't take it away because it had to be repeated. That's the glory of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Once for all. A perfect sacrifice that never need be repeated. So, those before the time of Jesus were saved by trusting in the Messiah and what he would do. Those since the time of Jesus are saved by trusting in the Messiah in what he did do. See the difference between the two? Both saved by Jesus Christ and the work of the Messiah, but one looking forward, the other one looking back. This makes a marvelous continuity among the people of God of all ages. That's reflected in the book of Revelation in the 24 thrones in Revelation chapter 4, verse 4. You see them later on in the book of Revelation as well. 24 thrones. Isn't that interesting? Why would God put 24 thrones in heaven in the book of Revelation? Because he wants to say there's 12 thrones there for the 12 tribes of Israel, and there's 12 thrones there for the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And God's saying they're all there together. There is a beautiful and powerful continuity of the people of God of all generations. However, God has organized his people differently throughout the ages. There is a distinction between Israel and the church. They're organized differently, but they're all the people of God, that is, all that have trusted in the Messiah and his saving works. God never had different ways of salvation for his people. It's a huge error to think that in the Old Testament you were saved by obeying the law, and the New Testament, you're saved by trusting in Jesus. No. Nobody could be good enough to be saved by the law. You had the law for sure, but without sacrifice, and what sacrifice pointed towards the Messiah and his perfect work. No one would be rescued by Jesus Christ. All right, that's it for our 3 questions. We're going to take a break. I see it's 7:14 p.m. Can we take a 15-minute break? And then we'll come back for another 45 minutes. And then if we can, we'll take some questions at the end. So take a break, stretch your legs, use the facilities, get a drink of water, warm yourself somehow.